earlier on, I asked for your help. Sometimes it's not always clear what to do videos about. And I just looked at it. I thought, I can't be bothered going back over that Liverpool stuff again. So I put the pressure on you lot. I asked you lot, you decide what videos we're going to do. What are we going to talk about? And often when I put that out there, I don't know what's going to come back. But often it's quite clear what I should have been doing because there's questions that are obviously on everybody's lips. So, and for that reason, I want to do two separate videos here. I want to keep the Moyes stuff to one side, and then I would keep the other stuff just in this video, which is probably more relevant to what's going on at the team at the moment. I'll tell you now what you've been talking about. Any ideas, Gio? Can you guess what? No, forget the Moyes stuff.
Honestly, I've not got a Scooby. I do not know. Because sometimes you get some like really relevant topics, but you also get some real throwaway topics in there as well. And sometimes they're really good, actually. It's nice to get requests if you want. So what we got?
Yes, this is not one of those. This is not, do you prefer Galaxy or Toblerone? No, this is very much to do, it's Toblerone, by the way. This is very much to do with West Ham. People want to talk about Michail Antonio being played out of position. It starts off with Chris Stamford saying it. It's basically, he said, do we need another central defender? He said, but could we play Antonio on the wings? And at first, I thought that came through. I thought, okay, that's absolutely fine. Then James Holden said, how about Michail Antonio as a right wing back? That would solve the crisis not having decent wing back option. And it also mean Moyes could play his preferred formation. That's a couple of them. And it's not the only one. There are other people. Tony said the world's stickiest bogey, which we obviously were not going to do that one, Tony, to be honest. Charlie Kerr then said Antonio going back on the wing alongside Scamacca, or to add another genuine goal threat. It's quite clear. Aside from David Moyes, what a lot of people want to talk about, getting Antonio in the team and moving him either wide into a different position as alongside Scamacca, but I guess we're still with the first one, right wing back. I know Moyes won't do it, but do you think that's an option? You know, when we do our little team selections, anything you would ever consider?
No.
There you go. Well, thank you very much for your question.
He doesn't like it. Antonio doesn't like playing there. He made it perfectly clear when we did play him there, and he's even joked about it himself and said, "Oh, it used to be a right back or whatever." Funnily enough, I don't remember the stats off the top of my head. It was a while ago now, but certainly in that season, 2015-16 season, statistically, in terms of assists and goals, Antonio was actually more efficient at right wing back than any other position in the team. Now, largely because Dimitri Payet is providing the crosses and he was arriving late in the box to get on the end of the crosses with his headers. But Antonio is a different player now than he was 2015-16 in terms of his build, his physique, his at pace, etc. He's a much different player. But also his attitude has changed now, and he's had that taste of glory, if you like, as the main man, as a striker. And I don't think he'd almost appreciate playing right wing back, actually. And defensively, I'm not convinced by it, if I'm honest with you. Has he got the ability to play there? I would say so. I mean, arguably, he's one of our best crossers of the ball, which is funny considering he's also deemed as the player with the less technique in the team. But I've seen him whiz in some real top crosses over the last 2 seasons or something, and often I sit here whinging because he's meant to be on the end of them, not providing them, but he does have it in his locker. I just don't see it working. I'd be surprised if it did.
Well, we'll talk about it slightly further forward then, but still wide. But it's not just whip the crosses in, he dinks them in as well. A couple of Souček headers last season were very much dinked in. Not only that, I've actually seen him, literally do a little dinked chipped cross with his left foot as well, which is bizarre, isn't it? Because let's be fair, if he tries to shoot with his left foot, he's in trouble of knocking out the James Webb Space Telescope, isn't he? But little bit of dinked technique he can sort of do. What I find weird about Antonio, before I get your opinion about further up, is the way David Moyes perceives him to be. So he's almost gone from being a David Moyes favourite to David Moyes not using him at all. And when I say at all, you know what I mean. It's very, very much gone from he shall play every game and now basically, no, you're just a substitute. And I just wonder if David Moyes maybe pigeonholed him incorrectly. If David Moyes has almost restricted by his own set of rules that he's implemented, which is Antonio is not a winger. Now Antonio is a striker. And Moyes was very clear to peddle this narrative, which is something Antonio bought into. You listen to any of Antonio interviews, particularly when he was just about to go away with Jamaica and stuff like that. I am a striker. I want the number 9 shirt. This is what I do. And David Moyes was saying the same thing. He is now a striker. And I think, okay, well, that's fine. You've done that. But now you have arguably a better striker. Why are you being limited by your own little rule? It's your own restriction. Why can't you now just say, well, okay, that's fine. Let's just play him on the wing. I mean, or is he? I just wonder if David Moyes is dismissing his qualities as a winger altogether. And whilst I take it you're right. Okay, what you mean about him not having the defensive qualities, but he does have the work rate to track back as a winger and sort of do a bit of covering. He is going to do that as well.
This video is sponsored by the OneFootball app, which is a lot better app than the TwoFootball app or the FreeFootball app, by the way. But those are not the only reasons to download the OneFootball app. Well, firstly, it's free. What you got to lose? If you don't like it, just get rid of it off your phone. But the main reason that I think anyway, because it is a fantastic app, is that you can tailor it to your own specifications. What do I mean by that ridiculous term? Well, I'll tell you what I mean. If you don't want to hear about all the generic Premier League football stories and you just want West Ham news, then you tell it so, because the app will ask you your support. You just say, I support West Ham, and what it does, the app goes around all the newspapers, all the various generic websites, and cherry picks all the West Ham stories, puts them all into one place, and chucks it straight to your phone. If you're going to download it and you haven't done so already, please use the link below, and then they'll know you've come from Hammers Chat.
And I watched your video earlier about the whatever no win in 60 games or whatever the bloody hell it was. But you went on later on in that to give some Fornals statistics, and the Fornals statistics you gave were for all his perceived qualities and why Moyes might select him for his heading and his tackling or whatever. Basically, his defensive attributes. He didn't make against Liverpool. Pablo Fornals didn't make a single tackle or interception. I got that right, yeah?
Or a block of clearance.
Okay, so the counter argument to that would be, and I think it's a weak one, but I'm just going to make it for you. Okay, he might not have won that tackle, but he does get back and he got himself into a position which cuts off a passing lane. If that's all you're talking about, then actually the technique of tackling or the reading of the game, the interception doesn't matter. If what you're talking about is just a body, just someone in there who's basic, you're talking about discipline. Basically, when we don't have the ball, are you going to run back and stand in position? Well, Antonio can do that as well. And I just wonder if he is a viable option on that left wing for when David Moyes. Do I trust him to run back? As much as I would.
As a right wing back, not a right winger, as a right wing back.
No, forget the right wing back. I'm now on to sort of left winger.
Sorry.
Okay, I totally accept what you say there. So I probably didn't make that clear. Because what I'm talking about now, as a left winger, wouldn't he just do what Fornals did, but also offer pace to run in behind? For those games, I know we probably play Benrahma there, most of the time. But for those games where David Moyes clearly doesn't trust Benrahma, why not play Antonio there as a viable alternative to pose a threat going forward, but also to go and stand in front of Cresswell, which is really the job we're talking about.
Yeah, I wouldn't be against him as a winger. I think I'd be interested to see. I mean, I would argue that that's his natural position, right wing, if you like, but can play in the left wing as well. I certainly wouldn't be against him. I think there's definitely pros and cons. And I think there's some games that would suit him. I think there's some games that probably wouldn't suit him, actually. But he would certainly give the fullback a hell of a hard time. And Antonio is sometimes at his best when he's one-on-one in a battle against a defender, whether it's sprinting, whether it's in the air, whether it's receiving the ball and he's got to hold the defender off and stuff. Antonio sometimes relishes those and is at his best, though. So if you give him a direct fullback to play against, I think the battle... I would back Antonio against majority of fullbacks in the Premier League. He might not win it over 90 minutes. At times he will get beaten, but there will also be sometimes Antonio will get past him. Antonio will get past the fullback. He will skin him and leave him for dead. He will beat him in the air. He will flick it on. It gives us an out as well from being under pressure at the back. If we need to go long ball, we can do. And this way, arguably, it's better to go long ball diagonally, because if you overhit it, it goes out for a throw-in, whereas you go down the middle, you overhit it, bounces through to their team's keeper. It's easier possession for the opposition as well. So there's plenty of arguments actually in favour of Antonio on the wing. The biggest... This is going to sound really stupid, but I'm going to say it. My biggest issue with Antonio playing on the wing is we've got no striker on the bench. And I know it sounds really, really silly, but if Antonio was, let's just say he started on the left against Bournemouth and he was thrashing Ryan Fredericks. Ryan Fredericks is right back. Antonio's thrashing him. Skamaka has to go off. Skamaka's not playing well. He's got to come off. The last thing I'd want to do is take Antonio off the left wing and put him centre forward when he's our main outlet down that side. And I think that becomes a problem. I think you're almost one striker too short in a weird way. Yeah. We can use Jared Bowen up front. But I think as a winger, I'm definitely not against it. I'm definitely not against it.
I do think, just to wrap this up now, I do think that is the final one. I think that's the reason that David Moyes doesn't do it. I think that David Moyes has painted himself into the corner. And I just do wonder if the key to unlocking all of this was Maxwell Cornet. Because Cornet can play as a striker, and not only that, I looked at when I've just the fleeting times I've seen him play centrally, I think he looks good as well, and just wonder if that's the one thing where David Moyes can say, okay, I can start Skamaka up front, I can start Antonio on the wing, and even if Skamaka comes off, and I'm thinking Antonio's too knackered because he's been running up and down that wing all game, I've still got Cornet that can go and play as a forward, and they can dovetail, they can do some different bits and pieces. But look, interesting one. I've got to be honest with you, I wasn't expecting that, but I just think it's, well, I'm saying that, I'm talking about the questions, so many of them, and there are a couple of others as well put forward about Antonio, but clearly it's something on people's minds. I just think...
It's because the wingers are out of form.
It is.
Bowen's, while he's goal scoring, mate, it's not that bad. He's not playing particularly well. Ben Armour's struggling to get into the team. People are fed up seeing Fornals shoehorned out there. Cornet's injured. Paqueta's injured. People are crying out for a bit of excitement. And I'll tell you what, that would bring excitement. Antonio playing on the late wing would be exciting. It would be carnage. And at times it would cause us problems. At times he would be out of position. He would end up on the other side of the pitch or something when he shouldn't. And his direct opponent, the fullback, would have a free run down that hand side. At times, I think this is what will prevent Moyes using it, is... I don't think he trusts Antonio defensively, because I've also seen Antonio do stupid things defensively, whether it's slide tackles or whatever. He loses composure far too much. Fornals does not lose composure from 1 minute to the last, no matter how heated the game gets. He's very disciplined and very calm. No, I've seen Antonio throw tantrums. I've seen him chase the referee around the pitch. I've seen him lose composure. And when you do that and you have defensive responsibilities, it becomes a risk. And I think it becomes too risky for Moyes. And I think that's why we won't see Antonio play on the wing, because I don't think Moyes trusts him to do what Bowen and Fornals do in terms of being in the right place at the right time defensively. I think it's too scary.
Fair point. Well, there you go. Thank you very much for your questions, and I do mean it. When it means we're struggling, when we do put the post out there and say help us with a few topics, because
we're going to need a lot during the World Cup.
We're going to really get your practice in now. So we're going to leave. We're going to discuss the David Moyes situation right now. That will be up first thing tomorrow morning.